Well, we're done talking about Dallas. Do you have another team you want to talk about?
I would like to talk about, if you mind talking about the Pacers.
Okay.
I thought so. They didn't do anything like monstrous. The Bruce Brown addition, amazing. So short term that you shouldn't care about the dollar amount. John Hollinger, his coin of human trade exception, he's basically that. But I view it more as they decided to roll their cap space over, which is totally fine. I don't know how to feel about Jared Walker. I know you, Jarris Walker. You like him better than I do. I'm not sure what his offensive impact is at the NBA level. There's a lot to love defensively. They have Obi Toppin, who I think works a lot on this team. What's mega interesting is I brought them up because of the Bruce Brown signing. I'm so high on Tyrese Halliburton. I'm very interested in just like the lineups they can run out because Andrew Nembhard is kind of a point guard, but he'll defend power forwards. So you can get just really sort of kooky with your lineups. But they've also, and this just solidified it to me, were linked to Pascal Siakam as a potential trade partner. That would be so out of character for Indiana because you're not getting out of that trade. You're not keeping both Jarris Walker and Benedict Mathurin in a Pascal Siakam trade. And so if you're this team, do you operate on that type of timeline where it's if you have to give up one of those guys plus picks for Siakam, do you do it? Like, are they at that point where you're ready? Because I look at as, and it doesn't even need to be, I don't know how to feel. I'm bringing it up because I don't know how to feel about them as currently constructed, is my point. Like, do they belong in the play-in conversation? And to throw on top of that is, would you look at making more of these? It's an aggressive play, but does it come at not maybe a slight discount because Pascal Siakam is about to enter free agency? And so it's, oh yeah, so that makes sense, but there's also a level of risk there because we're accelerating our timeline, dealing with a future or an imminent free agent here. The Pacers are there. I liked their offseason for the most part. I would have went with Taylor Hendricks over Jarris Walker. Then I really would have loved this team. But I liked their offseason. I didn't love it. And it kind of made me confused about their future. Like, they're one of the most confusing teams for me looking at just this upcoming season.
But wouldn't you agree that usually that's a really bad thing? Like, I'm confused. I don't know where they're going. Like, we level that criticism at Toronto, but that's a good thing in this case, right?
Right.
Like,
because they're on this sort of fluid trajectory, because we can't even say long-term because the Pacers are very adamant that this is like, it's called a retool. It's not a rebuild. It's like, all right, you guys are rebuilding at this point. Like, but there's also just, my questions are, does Benedict Mathurin, like, can he guard higher usage players so that you can play him in some of these lineups that you want to have him in? Does his efficiency improve from the outside? I think it will. So I'm not really worried about that. I'm more worried about him defensively. What does like Jarris Walker look like on offense? I already brought that up. And, there's still just, you have Bruce Brown, but like, what is the wing defense on this team? It's very much like, oh, Aaron Naismith, and then we're going to play a bunch of undersized lineups outside of that. And I can really dig it to some extent, but do they still have enough defense here? Maybe you trust Jarris Walker to really juice that up. Again, though, he's a rookie. How much of an impact does he have there? I think Taylor Hendricks was maybe more, and on defense, maybe, I guess I see the appeal of Jarris Walker. If I were them, I would be all in on Pascal. Like, if you told me that if Pascal Siakam was willing to re-sign and it cost you Benedict Mathurin and Jarris Walker, I would do it, is my point. Because Miles Turner, Siakam, Bruce Brown, Tyrese Halliburton, all this stuff you have around them. Look, if I'm the Raptors, I probably prefer picks over Mathurin, would be my gut. So it probably only costs you one of these dudes. I'm giving up either one if Siakam says he'll resign.
I think they're a good, like, what are you waiting for type of team? Because you know what I mean? Like, if you're not, it's like, oh, Halliburton he's too raw. He's not ready. It's like, no. He was an all-star. He's plays like he's 30 already in a good way. So it's not like you're waiting for him to, for this timeline that's built around Halliburton in his early 20s. And it's like Turner's in his prime. You got some other young guys, but like, those are really your guys you're principally concerned about. So like, if you're not going to trade for Siakam, what are you waiting for? Like, you're going to preserve your cap space because Indiana has been a noted free agent destination. You're not going to, their cap space doesn't really mean anything in terms of like, you're going to go get the Siakam equivalent in free agency. You're going to sign it. It's like, that's not it. So I think Siakam makes a lot of sense. I think they absolutely have the ability to put together a package Toronto like should accept, which is the other big hurdle when you're making up fake trades. So yeah, I think I hadn't really thought about that, in a serious way, but there's not really like, what's the reason? Why shouldn't the Pacers go trade for Siakam?
I think the argument that I've seen on Twitter a lot has been just the timing isn't right. But I'm like, I mean, you just maxed out Tyrese Halliburton. That'll kick in the year.
Based on what? The timing for who? I don't understand.
Right. And so it's the timing is, I mean, like I understand if you don't view yourself as like a cap slot contender, but you're not bankrupting, if it costs you Jarris Walker and like 2 protected first round pick, like I don't know what Siakam is going to command on so let's say it's an unprotected pick, Jarris Walker or Mathurin, and then another first round pick on top. Maybe there's some protection. That's not an astronomical price to pay. You're not just without all this other stuff. I guess because of the number of questions about just the overarching supporting cast where it's, okay, like what can Obi Toppin or Jalen Smith be part of the bigger picture? Like what about Aaron Nesmith? I think if you got another ball handler like Siakam in there, it makes even more sense to have Nesmith around. And was Buddy Hield? Does he have to go out to make the money work as part of this trade? You probably don't. Like you could step ladder your way there depending on like what Toronto wants to do about its roster spot situation. I don't know. Like I think the timing is right. I don't know that I don't think you have to. If you really believe that Mathurin and Walker are going to grow into these second and third and like fourth best building blocks on your team type of players behind Turner and Halliburton. Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. I feel a lot less comfortable about that than I did when you traded for Tyrese Halliburton. Even when Tyrese Halliburton was on the Kings, like you knew he was that dude. Mm-hmm. We don't know that about, not this dude. I want to make that clear. He's exceeded expectations in Indiana, but I think the timing is right. It's not a have to thing. It's you should absolutely be considering this thing. Well, and I would argue, they'll also be linked to OG Anunoby if he's available. That would be sort of the straddle the line trade, like sort of something that Portland would have done or Toronto would have done before it all just blew up in their face. I would be more intrigued by getting Pascal Siakam than OG Anunoby just because of the depth of Siakam's armory on offense.
I think that's right. And I think you really crystallized the timeline thing for me because we agree it's not, Halliburton and Turner, it's not quite right. We can't add like a nearing 30 max guy in Siakam. I think it makes way less sense to think like, we got to really wait on Mathurin or Nembhard or, Jalen Smith or Jarris Walker. Like, no. Those guys are like, if they pan out to be starting caliber players on a contender, like great, but the odds are real low that any of them will be. And so that's like, you're not going to gear your whole roster building, approach around a bunch of guys that like might be rotation players on a winning team or might not. Like that's not how it works.
I think you can comfortably say that you could say someone like Nembhard, I think can be contributing to a very good team, but
for sure, like you don't wait and make decisions.
No. And they have a deficit of players like that, which is not a bad thing because you already have the it guy. So you don't need as many of those. Let's wait and marinate and see when his co-star rises up. If they had, they're not Oklahoma City frankly, they're not even New Orleans where it's like looking at Trey Murphy and looking at Dyson Daniels, like those two players to me, if you're looking at future equity, who are you more intrigued by, Benedict Mathurin and Jarris Walker or Dyson Daniels and Trey Murphy?
Right. Yeah. It's probably the latter. I like Murphy and Daniels better.
I think it's the latter pretty comfortably, unless you think that Jarris Walker's like the next Pascal Siakam or something.
We just don't know enough yet about him.
That's that was why I wanted to. You would be in on. I guess I hate framing as accelerating the timeline because I don't think it's actually that. I think it's just capitalizing on an opportunity that jibes with, hey, Tyrese Halliburton's like really, really fucking great.
Yeah, and like I think just from a personnel perspective and a roster building perspective, it's difficult to think of a team, and we're probably elevating Turner a little too high to talk about him on the level of Halliburton, but like as bookends, those two guys might be like the easiest two players to build whatever kind of team you want around, because Halliburton, we've now learned, absolutely should be on the ball like all the time. But if he's not, he's like a just lights out shooter that's going to kill you from the second side if you're rotating towards him. And then Turner gives you the spacing, gives you the shot blocking. You can that's why I kind of like the Walker fit to circle all the way back, is like, this dude is just going to guard everything that moves and be physical and switch all over. Like that works with Turner, but you don't even need that. You could have a true banger. Like they just, those two guys, Halliburton and Turner, are so like the whole team is plug and play. Just like throw 3 other guys out there and it should work, with some exceptions.
And that was the Caitlin Cooper had written about this on her Patreon. Everyone should go subscribe to that. Like Jarris Walker gives them an element of defensive pressure that they haven't really had. And they've already kind of busted it out in summer league. And so, like, we can get into the discussion. You have to give up one of those players, Mathurin or Walker, in a Pascal Siakam trade. In theory, I think you would pick Walker just because, okay, you have Siakam and Turner, and I'm assuming you keep Turner. But like, there's a chance that Walker ends up being just the more scalable pro and easier to like contribute to winning. And so would you look at moving Mathurin? And then it's kind of, all right, could you try and play those three dudes together, Walker, Siakam, and Turner? Or is this just, well, the Turner rumors never die down anyway? And so if they move on from him, you go Siakam and Walker in the front court. I would be all in. Like, and if Toronto's asking price is obscene, but like, even if it was just, they don't even want picks or something ridiculously protected, plus these two young guys for Siakam, and Siakam is staying. That's the pretext of all this. You have to consider it.
You know what we've just done in this conversation is set up a dynamic that we're going to return to like 1,000 times between now and the trade deadline, where we're just like, Indiana's got to get in there, got to do something. There's no time to wait. They have all these assets. I can already feel it. This is going to be a team we talk about constantly and are just begging them to do something, unless they go get Siakam and then we can shut up. But
right,
like, you've framed it for me now where I know we're never going to get over wanting the Pacers to make like a splashy move, because it just like they just should. That's it. They have to do this.